Hello, virtual higher educators. This is Kellie Alston, your e-learning strategist, who is passionate about helping you master the art of teaching online. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you 3 reasons to use blogs in your virtual college classroom. Now, if you're listening to this and you don't teach online, but you teach face-to-face, you may also incorporate blogs in your class because you probably have a course shell where students can submit assignments and you can submit documents or upload documents for them. Well, you can also include a blog in that course shell. So let's get started. All right, so a blog is nothing but an updated website or a web page that's typically run by an individual or a group of people, and it's written in informal or conversational style. Now, you're going to use your blog as a formative assessment tool throughout the semester or throughout the session, whether it's 8 weeks, 5 weeks. If you decide to use a blog, it's going to be a weekly thing where students are going to post their posts on a regular basis. So it serves as a formative assessment tool. Now, the first reason you should incorporate a blog in your course is because it engages students in introspection and reflection. Now, let's see what Webster has to say about these 2 terms. Webster says that introspection is looking into one's own mind and feelings, and that reflection, it involves the fixing of the mind on some subject, serious thought, and contemplation. And it is the result of such thought, idea, or conclusion, especially if expressed in words. So, how do I get my students to be introspective and reflective? I ask them 2 simple questions. How does this topic or concept or chapter relate to your personal life? Voila. And how does it relate to your professional life? So, what does that look like? All right, let me read. Let's have story time. Okay, so I teach a course called Assessment and Evaluation in Young Children, and chapter 6 is about assessment for planning intervention. So I asked the question, how does the information you read in the text relate to you personally? Be specific. And my student said, the information provided in chapter 6 relates to me personally because I also have a cousin who has a disability. My cousin always mentions how assessments and IEPs have helped her when it comes to school. She always says if it were not for the school Gateway located in Greensboro, North Carolina, she would not have had the confidence that she needed to prepare her to go to her high school, Eastern Guilford. Because we are so close and communicate so much, not only has this information helped me understand the value and importance of assessments, but it has also helped my cousin as well. So that was her personal connection. So I teach them because, of course, I train them on this via an instructional video, which I'll talk about at the end. But I teach them to step outside of the classroom, to step outside their career, and to think about how whatever we're reading or whatever we're viewing, let's say if it's a video, how does it relate to you personally? How does it relate to someone that you've known, something that you've seen in your world, or something that you've experienced? Okay, and so when I have them do that, that's the kind of response that I get. Now, for the professional connection, she said, I will apply this information to my professional life by using my observational skills. As an educator, it is essential for me to pay attention to the results of assessments and understand task analysis. I will incorporate the use of authentic and play-based assessments by observing my students and documenting tasks and skills that they exceed or need improvement on. I will also remember to form favorable partnerships with my students and their families to show them that I care and their concerns matter. So, what do I tell them about this part? I mean, she did such an awesome job with that. I tell them that they must use examples. They must think deeply and they must incorporate terminology from that textbook chapter, from that article, or from that video in their responses. Why? Because I tell them this. I can tell, I've been doing this for a minute, and I can tell when your response alludes to the fact that you didn't read the chapter. I can tell when your response is one that you would have had you not taken this course. So, for me to assess your learning, I need to see and I need to know that you understand the terminology, that you understand the concepts, and that you're able to apply them. And so, when they think deeply and they use examples, they incorporate terminology, then I can do that. And so that's my tip for you, that when you are training students, that you are very specific about these three components, that they show that they are thinking deeply, using examples, and incorporating terminology. All right, so the second reason that you should incorporate blogs in your course is because you can help students make connections when they use a blog, because a connection is something that you join or fasten together, and it shows how something relates to something else, right? All right, so oftentimes in K-12, we implement strategies that we don't continue to implement when students go to college for some strange reason. So now I'm going to put on my reading specialist hat. Okay, my K-12 reading specialist hat. And I'm going to talk to you about this. You may or may not have heard it if you teach on a college level, where students make a text to text connection, text to self, let me slow down, a text to text, and a text to world connection with the material that they are reading. So, what do we mean by text to self? Text to self is when we ask students to make a highly personal connection between the reading material and their own experiences. That simple. Text to text is where they're going to make a connection between what they're reading and another book, what they're reading and another work by that same author, to other stories. I like to say to other, they could connect it to other videos or any other experiences because I'm online. And then text to world is where they make those larger connection as to how it relates to the world, how other influences at large have also impacted their thinking. And so that's what we focus on a lot oftentimes in K-12, but we also need to focus on that as students matriculate through the college system. So when you have a blog and you ask those two questions about their personal lives and their professional lives, you're causing them to make these three connections. Another reason or another way that they make those connections because it's online is because it's a good strategy for implementing successful learning online. One of my favorite articles is a literature review done by Nortvig Peterson and Bale. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's one of my favorite articles, but it's a literature review of the factors influencing e-learning and blended learning in relation to learning outcome, student satisfaction, and engagement. And I would encourage you to access it and read it. But in this article, they talk about how students want three things in their online courses. They want to make a student to student connection, they want to make a student to content connection, and they want to make a student to instructor connection. And so they do this through participation. I can slide this in so you can see participation, collaboration, and community. And they do this through the student to content through our providing them with a synchronous format or an asynchronous format with our activities, as well as embedding multimedia into the course. And then they make the student to instructor connection by the way that we support them and provide feedback, and also in the way our course is designed. So what am I saying? I'm saying that when you incorporate a blog in your course, you are allowing students to connect with each other, because when they respond to each other's posts, they're making that student to student connection. They're also, as we just already spoke about, making a connection with the content that they're reading. And then when you provide them with feedback, they're making that third connection. So let me move this back up. And let me read to you what I said to the student that had posted the professional and the example that I read to you before. And I said to her, "You did an outstanding job on this post. The format is perfect, and your responses to the reflection questions were so in depth and well written." So there I'm commenting on the technicalities of how she did what she did. And then I talk about her content. "I'm so glad that Gateway was available for your cousin. It's not far from my house, and I often think about how wonderful it is that a school like that exists when I pass it. Continue to internalize your learning. It's a beautiful thing to see how what we learn applies to both our personal and professional lives. I look forward to your remaining posts." Okay, so there you have it. You can establish connections with your students when you incorporate a blog. The third reason why you want to incorporate a blog, because again, it allows you to judge or determine the quality of their posts. You get to evaluate their learning. Now, I want to talk to you about two ways that you can do this. You can evaluate the students formally if you incorporate a blog, or informally. If you choose to do it formally, you're going to use a specific rubric where you're going to look at some specific categories. And I look at accuracy, whether or not they fulfill the instructions for the assignment. I look at the organization. For example, I ask them to write the question and then write their response in paragraph form. I look at the content and conceptualization, whether or not they apply their higher order thinking skills. And of course, the rubric is more detailed and explains to them these categories. And then I also look at mechanics. Now, but if you're familiar with QM, Quality Matters rubric, then you're familiar with the fact that you are encouraged to allow students to practice within your course without being so heavily graded. So I like to use the blog in some of my courses as an informal type of assessment where everybody starts off with 10 points. Everybody starts out winning. And the only way points are reduced is if the grammar and mechanics or the formatting or something is excessively wrong. You just were just using, it's just really informal. You're using colloquialisms and slang, and your grammar, your subjects and verbs don't agree, then okay, we have a problem there. So I take off points for that, and I'm specific and tell them about that. But because I have 10 posts, which equate to 100 points, everybody starts with 10 points. That's an informal way. Again, if you choose to do the formal way, you're going to want to use a rubric so students know exactly why their points were deducted. So here are the 3 reasons why you should include blogs in your course. For introspection and reflection, we want them to look into their minds. We want them to engage in serious thought and put what they have to say in their own words. We want them to connect. We want to join students to self. Join them to their self. That sounds strange, but we want them to make a connection from the reading material or whatever the content is to themselves, to other texts, and to the world. We want them to join. We want to be able to join students to each other, and we want to connect with our students by providing them feedback and validating their voice as they express their personal and professional connections. And lastly, we want to evaluate them throughout the course. We want to judge the quality of their posts formally or informally. All right, now I want to beseech you. Please, 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 whatever you ask college students to do, model it for them. Don't be surprised when they don't know what to do. Don't be surprised if they don't come to your class with the skill set that they should have gotten from high school or from the professors before you or the instructors before you. When they come to you, model what you want. Create an instructional video showing them, demonstrating for them how you want, what a quality post is, what the blog is for, how it's to be used, how it's going to be graded. Show them. Don't just tell them in writing. Show them so that you can address all the different learning styles, the auditory learner, the visual learner. Everybody can have their needs met when you show a video. Now, last but not least, I want to ask you to share this video with anyone, any of your colleagues, and also share with me your thoughts in the comments